welcome back to a brand new episode here. Today we're going to be talking about I Saw the TV Glow. Now, this was an interesting one. It certainly was not what I was expecting, and I didn't watch any trailers for it or anything, so I wasn't too sure what to expect from this, but it's lingered with me for a bit now. I know it's been a minute since I've uploaded here. I really felt like I needed to sit with this one. I don't have any like super deep, well-developed thoughts about it because it's one of those movies that you're really going to have to dive deep into it. And I don't know if I want to do that. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a little bit, like it put me into a bit of a funk after I watched the movie because I was just thinking about it so much. I was just like, So the horror this entire time is growing up. It's depressing. It was good though, I'd say. It's alright. It's alright. It's not horror. I didn't find it scary at all. I mean, maybe I could see it being a different experience seeing it in cinema or like at a drive-ins. Drive-ins would be perfect. But it's definitely, it leaves an impact, but not in like the normal kind of horror way, I guess. So if you haven't seen it, just a quick content warning. I would say domestic violence for sure. There is what I would see alludes to self-harm. So there's that. But that's at the very, very end. And this is not a graphic movie by any means. It's not like gory or insanely like, it's very artsy. It's an A24 film, so that's to be expected. But it's directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. Schoenbrunn. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And just a little synopsis is teenager Owen is just trying to make it through life in the suburbs when his classmate introduces him to a mysterious late-night TV show. A vision of supernatural world beneath their own. In the pale glow of the television, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. Now, this is, it's a pretty basic synopsis for the movie. I would say that's exactly what happens, but there's so much more to it as well. Oh my god. The long monologues, like more towards the end, that's where like you really kind of find out what happened, It doesn't do much of showing you. It just kind of like tells you a lot.
Wanna hop up and say hi? Hop up. Oh, it's a big boy. Say hello. Hi, handsome.
It's storming like crazy right now, so
He's a little all over the place. Huh, big man's? Hi.
while he is here, I'll take this moment. So I am going to a Monster Con. It's my first one that I'm ever going to. And it's right here in New Jersey. And I decided I'm going to do the photo op with Heather Langenkamp and Robert Englund from Nightmare on Elm Street. So that is super, super exciting. There's a bunch of other cool folks there that I'm hoping to get like autographs from. But they're the ones that,
Hi, baby.
that I'm doing a photo op with. So maybe I'll do like a little vlog of that for this channel. I think that would be cool. I'm obviously not going to be able to record like with them, but just kind of show like what was going on there that day and whatnot. I don't know. I'm also considering if I want to go to the one in Maryland because Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard are going to be there. So that would just be so cool. Hi, guys. Peeking around.
Hi, big head. Some people are scared of you. I don't blame them.
Justice Smith plays Owen. Fred Durst is in this randomly from Limp Bizkit. He plays the dad, which is not a good character by any means. Bridget Lundy, Payne, she plays Maddie, and Danielle Deadweiler plays Brenda, which I believe that's Owen's mom. So, it grossed about $5 million in the box office. That's pretty good. A24 films, they usually get like a lot of buzz, and they do moderately well. I mean, unless it's like an Ari Aster movie, then it's going to be crazy. So it has been a minute since I watched this movie, like over a week, I'll be honest. I did buy it and I watched it again since, just to try to like refresh myself a bit. My opinion of it didn't really change. I still think like it is what it is. But I will say, I think it's, I mean, obviously, once you get further into the story, it's very obvious. But right from the beginning, this, like, you get the idea this is a queer film, which I love. Duh. But like right away, you're kind of given that impression. I mean, for me, this scene where it's young Owen in the like parachute thing, it resembles the trans flag. I don't think that's, by any mistake. I think that's on purpose. And this like kind of umbrella of queerness that seems to be over Owen's head pretty much his entire life. I think if you're queer, you're probably going to have a much, much different experience watching this movie and what you're going to take away from it than, someone who is heterosexual. I would say. Horror like is uniquely a very kind of queer place as well. It's always kind of been a safe haven for queerness. Like in that sense, it makes sense, but I also know that like just people aren't going to read into this movie that way just because like it's not their experience, but it's blatantly there. It's blatantly there. Like if you're going to ignore the fact that he's a cross-dresser or trans, then they don't specify, so you can't really be too sure. I think it's leaning more towards he has some kind of trans identity within him. This movie's just kind of like about not exploring that and not exploring that childhood, because when you get older, it's not going to be the same. And also talking about how they can't hurt you if you don't think about it, like that repressing of feelings and whatnot. I think the proof is in the pudding that this movie is an allegory to queer identity. There's a lot of time jumps in the movie. It goes from like past to present and then goes into the future as well. Like you see this person's entire life, Owen. And as we are rewatching his memories from his childhood, it all just seems so dark. And like it's very long shots a lot of the time too, of him like walking or even just doing stuff. There are like obviously a lot of cut scenes and whatnot, but there's a lot of just one shot takes. And the show that like the nostalgia is kind of all based around in this, also, that was an interesting take that I was reading on this movie. I'm going to say this came from the straight audience that watched it. They got a narrative of like the dangers of nostalgia and not like, that whole other bit that I talked about. That's fine. That's completely fine. I love that people can interpret it in certain ways. And I also kind of love that, like, that hidden meaning is kind of special to, like, the queer community. But the Pink Opaque, the TV show that they talk about in the movie, gives Goosebumps vibes, right, guys? Right? It's Goosebumps. That's essentially, like, what they're getting at, right? I mean, just even down to the monsters and whatnot, the acting in the episodes that you watch, it's straight out of Goosebumps. So young Owen runs into Maddie and she's reading about the Pink Opaque and she's a little bit older, you can tell there's the vibe of like this older kid and then the younger one that thinks she's so cool, that kind of thing. And it starts off really cold at first, but like you can tell they warm up pretty quickly once they start talking about the show. She's talking about how Mr. Melancholy, the like villain in it, he wants to spread darkness across the world, and very much kind of like an allegory to mental health as well. that comes in a lot during this movie. And both of their fathers are not good characters either. You don't see much of them. You don't see Maddie's father at all, I don't think. And then you only see Owen's father in a few scenes. It's obvious that, like, they both come from kind of abusive homes and whatnot. It does do a time jump, and we see that Owen's mom is very sick and she does pass from, I'm going to assume, cancer. We get like a very clear kind of dynamic with how the father is with Owen, because Owen's talking about the pink opaque and his father just says, "Isn't that a show for girls?" Your heart really breaks for Owen in that moment, and sorry, but like, growing up queer, yeah, you experience that a lot, and it is kind of like what do you mean? It kind of reiterates that, like, where this repression was learned from, you know? There also is some moments where the characters like break the fourth wall, so to speak, and they talk like directly to the audience. And it feels unnatural. Watching a movie critically, you know that, like, when they reference the audience, it gets weird sometimes. This felt okay because it's trying to create that really strong emotional connection with the audience to the characters that we're watching, the same way that you would get when you were younger watching characters and how emotionally invested you would get into them. You get emotionally invested into these characters really quickly. I was crying 33 minutes in, all right? That was the only time I cried, but it made me tear up when they're sitting on the bleachers and Owen says to her, because she starts like pressing him about, like, well, what are you into? Do you like boys? Do you like girls? And he's just like, I don't know. And he said something that impacted me big time. I had to pause the movie, that he wasn't digging to search and find that out about himself because he was afraid of what's inside himself. And that just, like, it broke my heart so much. And just that feeling of growing up queer and not being able to explore that. Not even just explore it, but like try to navigate the world through that lens when you're having all of these really negative influences. It really got to me, and I was like, oh boy, this is going to be emotionally tolling. I can tell. I also think the use of the color pink is also pretty, like, important. I mean, pink for the longest time has been associated with the gay community. I mean, ever since the 40s, really. Along with just like the idea of repression. A lot of these movies are about repression, huh? Just the ones we're choosing over here. I promise, like, we can get into some campy good ones. I would love to. We can talk about like the Leprechaun movies, but I feel like these ones are just like fun to kind of sink your teeth into. I also didn't want this to be a super long video. I thought we would just kind of breeze over some of the stuff because, like I said, I still don't exactly know how I feel about it. And Maddie, she's clearly like going through a lot of her own things. She runs away and just disappears for a while. She comes back later in like the time jumps, and there's no real like proof, you know? We don't like get to see this other world that she allegedly goes into or anything like that. We just are being told her stories through it, and I'm not gonna lie, it more so seems like a psychosis type of thing and not actual reality. Now, maybe this is where people were getting the impression of like, ooh, nostalgia bad. But I never really got that vibe from watching it. I didn't. I picked up that like there's an inherent kind of sadness with nostalgia, but not that like, oh, it's bad. So find that to be interesting. Owen's mom does pass away, and this very clearly takes a toll on him. There's an 8-year time jump, and he's just working like your average kind of job. I mean, I wouldn't say average. He works in like a bouncy castle arcade place. So, like, I mean, he keeps that job his entire life, you know? I think this movie is more so the dangers of just like staying still. You know, Owen wasn't able to explore who they felt like they were. He got stuck in that rut. I think that's more so what the movie is about, is the dangers of not being able to explore these feelings, you know? Pink Opaque also got canceled shortly after Maddie disappeared, so I think that maybe fed into Owen's own kind of delusions regarding it, but I think both of them clearly kind of exhibited like their own different types of mental illnesses, if you know what I mean. Like Maddie was definitely more psychosis based, and then Owen is more depressive, I would say. The color design in this movie, along with the sound design, are really, really well done. The contrasting lights, it makes everything feel so vibrant and like childlike, you know, but also sickly and dark. They do such a good job, the colors that they contrast, like a very vibrant pink with a green, with the darkness around it. It feels sickly sweet. That's the best way to put it. It's a sickly sweet kind of like vibe to the entire film, honestly. They do run into each other again later on in life, and Maddie's just kind of like disclosing certain things with Owen, and that's where you see like the flashbacks to when they would be watching the show together on their nightly, you know, sleepovers and whatnot, weekly sleepovers, and how she would dress up with him and he would try on like some of her dresses, and he was like, it was more than just going to watch the show. She was giving him a space where he could finally explore those feelings that he was having. I truly think it was more so the loss of that ruined Owen than losing like his love for the Pink Opaque, you know? Also, Maddie looks so much like a young Winona Ryder. It's crazy. All right, there's some shots where I was like, is that her? Like, what the hell? I will say you do get a little bit of a look into like one of the episodes, and it's the final episode. And absolute nightmare fuel. Oh my god. Like, I wouldn't say it's terrifying, but it's definitely like, ooh. Oh, that's creepy. But also, yeah, it's just kind of like that last episode really symbolizes just the depression, Mr. Melancholy taking over and killing off the heroes, you know? Also, the scenes where he was throwing up static, that looked so cool. And the sound design, oh, I just know I would have been plugging my ears in a movie theater. That's how you know it's good. Maddie also goes deep into describing a lingering or a longing for her time back. I think most people that grew up in abusive situations or in just troubled childhoods can definitely understand that wanting to just have that time and that innocence back before like it all got ruined. Also, like running away from problems and finding the same results. Of course, Maddie blames it all on the Pink Opaque, like Mr. Melancholy, as if it's a real thing in the world. And like, it's sad. It's really sad, honestly. But I also think like it's very interesting that we're not given too much about Maddie, but you still get so attached to her because of how you find out that she made Owen feel so safe. So there is a scene again where they meet up, and this is more so, I think, where like the message of the movie comes from. They're on a football field, and she addresses Owen as Isabel, and Owen shoves her to the ground and runs off. Literally just rejecting this idea that they felt safe enough to explore with each other. I mean, he literally just shoves down those feelings. And it's sad, honestly. And then you find out he never saw Isabel again after that. Or not Isabel. He never saw Maddie again after that. It's really sad. It's really sad, you guys. I swear, it's a sad movie. But she was saying how they need to, like, bury themselves alive or something. It sounds almost like suicidal, but I don't think that's necessarily where it's going. I think it was kind of like a rebirth. Owen talks about having so much anxiety and being so scared, thinking that she would come to force him underground. That felt more so like she was going to force him to come out. Because sometimes that can feel like death. If I come out, everything's done. Everything. I think you guys call me crazy. I think it's that. And I think it's just that, like, anxiety of coming out. But yeah, he never sees her again. More time passes. His dad dies. He just carries on, like, as you should, you know, doing all the things that we're told to do in life. Like, all right, go to school and then, you know, get a job, meet someone, marry, have kids, you know, have a house, this and that. And there was a scene where he's, I think, in his mid to late 20s in that time. And it's him sitting around the fire, which he did a lot as a kid. Before, we would just see him sitting there looking into the fire. And now we see him getting up and putting the fire out, extinguishing it completely with water. And I think that's just like extinguishing the flame of our youth. As corny as that sounds, like, because then it goes into a 20-year time jump. And now we're seeing Owen old, stuck in the same routine, in the same life that he had for the past 20 plus years. And he finally snaps during this point. It's really heartbreaking. Like, he's crying for his mom. And it's just like, I don't think it ever really hit, you know? He just disassociated when his mom passed. And it took him his entire life to finally just address those feelings. And he does cut himself open in the chest in the bathroom. It's not bloody though, or like gory, but he pulls his chest apart and it's like static from the TV. And he comes out of the bathroom at the end and he's just apologizing like crazy to everyone for ruining their time, being an inconvenience to them. And they still just keep ignoring him. And that's how the movie ends. Now, it's very bleak. It's very, very bleak. I'm not going to lie to you guys. So, I do recommend maybe just a little bit of, like, caution if you think it might be a hard watch for you. Like, I know personally, I haven't watched Smile yet because I know there are heavy, heavy mental health implications in that. And that is, like, a harder topic for me just because I find it so utterly heartbreaking. And also it can be damaging if it's coming from a certain perspective of like mental health bad and not mental health understandable, you know? That's more so my thing. If you think this movie might be hard to watch, then maybe just pass up on it. I'm not sure where you can stream it. I just bought it on Amazon, which I wish I just rented it. Be so for real. I don't know how many times I'll watch this movie. It's still good. It's still good. I would still recommend it. So with that, we'll check reviews, of course, as always. And yeah, let me know, guys, do you want a little like MonsterCon vlog? I could. There's not going to be like any videos of me meeting them and whatnot. I might be able to get a photo with a few people at their booths, like doing autographs. But I'm not going to be like, say hi to the vlog. Gosh, no. But I will, you know, take some clips of me just walking around and I'll take photos and then I'll put it into like a video and just like talk about my time there and whatnot. But yeah, I can't spend too long there because I can only leave him alone for like a couple hours at max. So I'm going to try to get there as close to like the scheduled time slot for our photos as I can. And then afterwards, just do a little walking around and get some autographs. Because Clive Barker's going to be there, Julia Lewis, F me for not knowing their names, the dude that plays the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. Like, it's so cool. William Shatner, he's going to be there. Like, Henry Winkler, like, it's so cool. It's so cool. So, like, I have to go. It's very expensive. That's what we'll say. It's very expensive, okay? This is like a little birthday treat to me, so. All right, into the reviews. Do we usually start with the highest rated or the least rated? We'll do the least rated. That one's shorter. So, this person said, 1 star, not horror. It's not. It definitely isn't. Not like how people would be hoping for, you know? I usually don't ask for my money back, but this movie performed the biggest bait and switch from trailer to film that I have ever seen in my life. Now, I haven't seen the trailer, but I also recommend people don't watch trailers, at least not before the movie. I feel like they ruin it nowadays, dude. There was nothing horror about this movie at all, just a bunch of dialogue. Word salad that meant nothing. That's not true. I cannot believe I fell for this trailer and thought this would actually be a horror movie. It's a bunch of nonsense. You would do well to avoid this. The least rated ones are always so like, nah. Like, I didn't even love the movie, but I don't disagree that much. A movie for a specific audience, but so well done. Very specific audience. I think anyone can watch it, but to get like the true message of the movie, you gotta be a little fruity. I've never seen a movie so laser focused at one specific group. This is an arrow aimed directly at trans or questioning people in their mid-20s to mid-40s who have grappled with the fear of transitioning. The horror of this film is the horror of the refusal of the call, and the comfort of the numbing normal keeping you from true happiness. The horror of, but I don't want to face fear and risk of death to live as my true self. The horror of knowing deep down that it will all be better, but of being so scared that you never take that horrifying step. I watched it as a blindingly unsubtle movie aimed at the genderqueer audience. It hit and it hurt because I know girls stuck in the same cycle that our lead is stuck in. It was horrifying on a level that got under my skin and stuck deep. And that's where the horror is. I think people that were getting the impression of like, oh, nostalgia bad. No. It's both surface level and very deeply a metaphor for trans identities more so, I would say. I think that's why like the umbrella parachute of the trans flag works the best, because it doesn't specifically say he's trans, he's non-binary, he's this, that. Like, there are so many groups that fall under the umbrella term of trans that was appropriate. You know what I mean? As a signifier for this character is queer. With that said, this movie is not going to land for a lot of people. Very true. If you've had huge scary feelings that you've been scared to express, if you've ever been scared to change your whole life despite needing to desperately, this movie will be an amazing experience. If not, then you're going to watch an hour and a half of expertly directed cinematography that says absolutely nothing you can relate to. I kind of love that. I kind of love it. I don't think it's so like, because this makes it sound like, oh, you're not going to enjoy this at all if you're not queer. I don't believe that. I think you can still find enjoyment in it. It hits on a whole different level if you belong like to the queer community. And I would say like it's not even just specific to trans people. I think gay people can feel this way as well. Bi people, anyone, you know, as long as you're like on that gender or sexual spectrum, you can identify with something in this movie. And it really does hit. This ended up being so much longer than I thought it would. I didn't think I was going to have too much to talk about with this movie because I did feel such a way about it, I'll make one of my straight friends watch it so that I can be like, what are you taking from this? But yeah, I want to know your thoughts, guys. If you saw the movie, definitely let me know what you thought about it. So y'all been telling me I need to do like a rating. I need to do a rating system. I'm not technically savvy enough to work like graphics and whatnot, but if out of 5 paws I had to say for this movie, it's good. It's good. I don't want to give anyone the impression that it's not a good movie, but I would still maybe give it 3.5 out of 5 stars, just because it's such a specific experience that I think that could be a little detrimental. And I even found it a little detrimental. There were some things that I probably didn't even pick up on myself, because I think it was geared more towards the trans umbrella. There's that. Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. I truly do appreciate you, as always. I'm sorry, it's been a minute since we sat down to really do this. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Like and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.